Chris from New York. I'll see you tomorrow night.
How you doing? Chris Cuomo here. I appreciate you joining me on NewsNation. I'm having a hard time. I don't know about you. I've rarely struggled as I have last couple of days on what to say tonight. So I'm going to come at it different ways, if you'll allow it. Good news is, today's my mother's birthday. So when I called her, I asked her what she wishes for us. And she said, "What do you mean us? The family?" I said, no, the country. And she looked at me like, this kid's still crazy. And then she gave me an answer. She said, "I wish we had leaders who care more about our government." And I was surprised because my mother almost always gives a different answer whenever I ask her what matters about anything to do with humanity. So I prompted her. I said, "Mom, what about la familia?" And she said, "Oh, of course, family. That's our secret weapon." And I don't know that enough of us believe that anymore. Mama's right. The unique truth about America is that she only works if we tap into our interconnectedness and interdependence. Those are big words indicating a simple idea. Here, we have to care about one another. It is our only bond. We don't have homogeneity. We don't have common heritage or even really culture. What we have and what has made our greatness so durable is our ability to combine to magnified effect. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And the great news is we have so much more potential in America than I see anywhere else. I mean, if you think about it, we barely harness the potential of the largest portion of our population, women. Imagine where America could be when everyone is allowed, encouraged, and depended on to reach full potential. But right now, all we can do is imagine that because we are so desperate to drag ourselves away from greatness, from progress, from each other. And that is what I see that really bothers me. And the reaction and the lack of reaction to the second attempt on Trump in the last couple of months. Oh, but the guy didn't even shoot. What if it was your father? Well, what if it was Kamala Harris or President Biden? God forbid. You think that it would be almost a shoulder shrug and more of talk about the Secret Service and allocation of funds than just how crazy it is that this is what's happening in our country? That reaction of, well, come on, don't make too much of it. He had an AK-47 pointed at him. The reaction is unacceptable. And it's the second time media and political players have gotten away with playing down what should be a cause for panic. Elon Musk, I'm a believer in this guy's potential, okay? Now, he hasn't learned that erasing a tweet doesn't make it go away. It only shows that he knows what he said was stupid. And that is what hinting about targeting Harris is. It's stupid. I know he's a genius. I don't care if he's autistic. What he said is stupid. And it's a nod to what gets too much energy from all of us. Elon Musk could be leading the way to a better dialogue in our society. I don't know why he's undercutting his own significance with these cheap shots. I want to work with him. I believe in his platform. I believe in him, but not in what he's doing. But maybe he's just like the rest of us. It's so intoxicating. It's so contagious, the negativity. We need our leaders to step up and start being rewarded for stepping up and doing the right thing. Both of those things matter. A mentor and friend sent me a piece that posited that the solution to the division in our society is to split it. Never. It would never work, and it can never be. Patrick Henry had it right. Maybe it was him. Maybe he borrowed it from Aesop. It doesn't matter. United we stand, divided we fall. And it is even more true today. And this gets clouded by the fact that division gets you paid. Division gets you clicks. Division gets you a following. Division, especially in digital media, is absolutely the way to get known. So the blame for the dynamic is everywhere. On the right, far right, for sure. But just as troubling to me, and no, it is not false equivalency. My brothers and sisters, I got nobody to impress, okay? I'm not joining any team. I'm not looking for a following. I'm not looking for fans. I tell people to take a hike on a regular basis. I'm just telling you how I see it as somebody who has been studying us for a quarter century in this gig. It is just as troubling to me to hear about fake stories of eating cats and dogs as it is to hear fake concern by our sitting president and almost nothing from the Democrat who wants to lead us about what happened with Trump. We don't condone violence. Who says that? What does that even mean? You don't dismiss trivial pursuits of violence? Okay, who would? We need a lot more than that right now. We need reason to believe in who we are at our best, and we are starved of that. Instead, we're talking about the Secret Service, who by most accounts did an excellent job this time. And you should talk about how they're funded and why they're not giving them more security, better security. But that's not what matters most here. There's a reason mentally ill or deranged or whatever it winds up being classified as, that these types of people are picking up on all the hostility. It's not enough to call it out and say it's wrong. I get that now. Being a scold does nothing. You have to just do your best to be the change you want to see, as Gandhi credited us. So, after waiting for a real message, looking around the media, being disappointed again, that everybody just wants to kind of parse out, who's to blame? Who's to blame? I mean, don't you think that you should, and don't you think that you should, and nobody's doing this. But this is the only thing that's going to change it. Okay? And look, I hear what Trump is saying. Trump blames the Democrats and their attacks on him as a threat to democracy for the violence directed toward him. He then says that they are the real threats to democracy. So if it's wrong that they're threatening him that way by calling him that, why would he call them that? We need better. And I keep seeing use of the word hate everywhere in our politics. Trump hates Taylor Swift. Democrats hate him, want him eliminated. So, here's what I did. I didn't know what to say. I kept going through drafts, and I just wasn't getting anywhere. It wasn't even landing right with me. So I called former President Trump. And I didn't ask him any questions. I didn't go after him about his role. I just wanted to know how his family's taking this. Because I grew up like that. I grew up worried about who was going to try to hurt my father. And I told you a story last week that I remember this day. I was 7, 8 years old, okay? And I remember him jumping off that stage in some ugly houndstooth blazer and running up the front of an auditorium because someone had thrown a pie at a coconut shell at Abe Beame, who was mayor, and Bella Abzug, who was running for mayor. She used to wear these big, beautiful hats. And my father's on the stage with them in this mayoral debate or discussion, whatever. He got killed. He lost so many elections before he won one. And the guy throws the thing, and my father jumps off the stage and goes running up, and throws him on the ground, holds him down. I was so scared. And you can think what you want about Trump. He does not have many more full-throated critics of what he says and does than me. Okay? And yet I called him today because I am ashamed of how we are responding and not responding to the threats on him. And I feel for his family. And I know you can roll your eyes and say, oh, yeah, he asked for it. Listen, that's your choice, and I think it's a wrong choice, okay? We got to get out of the judgment business unless it's judging ourselves. And you got to start rewarding things that are better. And I got to tell you, I don't know how he stays in the race. I don't know how he got up after being shot in the head. And you people who try to mitigate that, you need to check yourself. He gets up, pumping his fist, stays in the race, barely even talks about it. Now, look, I do believe he has wasted opportunities, and he has another one now. Who better than Trump to say, we can do better? I can do better. I know he keeps doubling down on his angry rhetoric. How can he not? It keeps working for him. I don't know that it gets him elected. My theory is that he needs to expand. He had a chance to do it after he was the target of an assassination at the RNC. He had a chance to say, I know what got me here. It's not going to get me where I want us to be. He did not take that chance. He now has another chance. Oh, you're supporting Trump. I'm supporting us. The idea that I am a Trump supporter is laughable to the man on your screen right now. That is not what this is. I am worried about us. I am ashamed of what's happening around us right now and the relative lack of concern about it. I just don't see how we get anywhere better than where we are right now. Look, I'm not blaming Democrats. I'm really not. I blame the guy. And whatever disease he has that the people around him either knew about and did nothing about. The guy was arrested 20 years ago for barricading himself in a room with all these weapons. Where are we caring about one another? Where are we taking care of our own? Where are we pushing to get help? We're leaving people languishing, dying on the streets. What is going on with us? I don't get it. That's why I reached out to Trump. I wanted to just say, listen, I'm really sorry that this is going on and it's being dealt with this way. Not because I'm in favor of his politics or what he says. I criticize him all the time. That's my job, and he deserves it. But he doesn't deserve this. A guy pointing an AK-47 at him while he's playing golf? And we take solace in the fact that the guy didn't get any rounds off. That does not work for me. If I had been through what that guy's been through in the last 2 months, you would not know where I am. You would never see me on TV again. No way I would do that. I don't know how he does it. He's got kids, they're adults, but he's got grandkids. He's got a wife. People giving crap to Melania Trump, worrying about whether or not there was a plot around his husband. How could she not? I don't think she's right, but I totally get why she feels that way, and people mock her. And then her husband has a guy pointed with an AK-47. Where are those people apologizing? That's what it's time for. I should not have come at you, Melania Trump, for suggesting that maybe there was something more afoot. I get your paranoia. I get your feelings. You have a right to that. There's nothing wrong with saying that, with being a basic, decent human being. It has gotten too out of control, too far from where we need to be and how we need to be. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know. So this is the last thing. This was the best I could do. All right? And of course, the prompter operator helped me out by, of course, scrolling past what I want for it. Anyway, U2 has a song, Two Hearts Beat as One. It's from one of their earliest albums, War. Okay? I don't know what's got to be said. I don't know if it's black or white. There's some that see red. I don't get the answers right. I leave that to you. Is this love out of fashion, or is it the time of year? Are these words distraction to the words you want to hear? U2 was singing about troubled relationships in their lives, but also about the reunification of Germany. And when I did the research and I looked at the lyrics, it really hit me. We are playing a dangerous game with ourselves, and we're doing it for petty stakes. And this can be broken. What we have can be broken. And no, not by Trump. He is not a despot in waiting. Okay? I don't buy it. And no, not by Harris. She is not a communist just because socialist isn't enough, so you had to ramp it up to Marxist to communist, but then you went back to communist because nobody knows what a Marxist is. It's because of what we're allowing ourselves to become en masse, and it will spread. I know that you don't feel connection to it in your life. I know you shouldn't, because our communities are strong, our people are strong, we care about one another. But there is a top-down phenomenon, and it is corroding us. It shouldn't be that more Trump supporters were asking me yesterday whether or not I think he's going to win than what happened with this guy with the AK-47. We've got to care about one another, even if you don't like or agree or are actively opposed. Fine, do all of those things. But we cannot forget our human decency. You got to care when somebody tries to kill somebody. I've told you this before, and I've learned the lesson so many times myself around the world. Either you care when anyone is hurt, or you'll never really care about anyone being hurt. And that's where we are. You can oppose, you cannot vote, you can dislike everything about, you can condemn the words. But you got to remember our interconnectedness. You got to remember that if we're not like this in this country, and I'm not saying thick as thieves, I'm not saying you got to walk around hugging and kissing everybody. You keep asking me why I call everybody brother, because I'm trying to suggest that we matter to each other, even if we disagree. I think U2 has it right. It's not black and white. People are going to see things different ways. But you have to be pushing us towards a better place. That is all that matters. And every moment it doesn't happen, every moment of opportunity, like what we just had, there's an opportunity in somebody trying something as screwed up as what this guy tried with Trump. For us to condemn what is wrong and embrace what is right. Where are our leaders? Where are the people who want to be at the head, showing what we are at our best? You tell me, because I do not have the answers, but I see the problem, and so should you. Let's take a break. When I come back, I'll bring in the better minds to talk about how this jackass got this close to a former president, what it means about the status of security, and what it means about the state of play. There's the jackass in this election. 4 minutes, 5 seconds.
Play and Alexa.
Do you ever have the feeling that your life is out of control? What can you control? Dr. Gary Probst here with thoughts about letting go in just a moment.
If you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, you qualify to receive a free, no-obligation consultation on how to get rid of that debt for good. Call the Debt Helpline now. One simple call is all it takes to get the ball rolling to a debt-free life and start living your dreams.
800-943-0812. 800-943-0812. That's 800-943-0812.
Lesson learned from an airline flight attendant. I tried to hold a hot cup of coffee through turbulence. It was spilling and scalding on my hand. She placed her hands around mine and set the cup down upon the tray. She told me to let the coffee ride with the plane and it would not spill. I guess unless the plane did a barrel roll, that made sense. It worked. That resembles life. The harder we hold on to something, the more we try and control it, the less control we have. In the 1970s BTO hit, Let It Ride, Randy Bachman and Fred Turner were inspired by people resting in a hot spring in Japan and how peaceful they appeared. Their song was about relational conflict, often needless and petty. Put down the hot coffee and life. Live like those in the hot spring. Take the advice. Try, try, try. let it ride.
You're listening to NewsNation, America's independent source for unbiased news. To get NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com.
Keeping up with new TV shows could be such a headache. This show is on one streaming service, that show's on another. It's not entertaining, it's overwhelming. That's why there's Rewind TV, the best classic comedies from the 80s and 90s, all in one place. Hey, those were the days. And with no annoying passwords to remember, there's no need to ever change the channel again.
Trust me on this one.
Don't delay. Watch today all your favorite comedies from the 80s and 90s on Rewind TV.
Now, while I dismiss the character of the man who allegedly wanted to make an attempt on former President Trump's life, I don't dismiss his planning and his motivation. 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh. Every time you do something bad, they always say your full name. He was in court today, faces 2 federal charges, possessing a firearm as a felon and possessing a firearm with an obliterated serial number. We are learning that he staked out his position on the perimeter of the golf course. And he had a GoPro camera, he had a couple of backpacks, and he'd been waiting for about 12 hours before he was spotted by the Secret Service. And they did a hell of a job. Let's be honest, he didn't even get a shot off, thank God. Secret Service agents fired on him. He fled to his car, was apprehended, no incident. The suspect did not get off any shots. Again, I know there were reports that there were shots in the vicinity. There is a firing range not far from there, but everybody says he didn't fire at Trump and never had Trump in sight. But still, way too close. His record shows more than 100 charges against him between 1996 and 2014. Let's bring in the prosecutor from Palm Beach County, where this incident took place, Florida prosecutor Dave Arenberg. Brother, good to see you as always. What do people need to know about this man and the disposition of the potential case?
Good to be back with you, Chris. That was a great monologue. Well, this guy clearly is a screw loose, but the fact that he fled right after he was caught, right after he was shot at, shows that it's going to be difficult for him to create an insanity defense, because you have to say you didn't know the difference between right and wrong. Well, once you flee, you're fleeing because you knew what you did was wrong. So he can giggle in court with his lawyer today. He can act a fool on social media, try to recruit Afghans to fight in Ukraine. But normal people don't do this. And, you're going to deal with people who have screw looses who do things like this, but it doesn't mean they're legally insane. So this guy's facing serious punishment. The charges against him today by the feds, I think, were the low-hanging fruit. The weapons charges, punishable by up to 10 years each. Things like an ex-felon in possession of a firearm, that's easy. He's an ex-felon, and he possessed a firearm. Trying to smudge off the serial number, that is an easy crime to prove. But what could be tougher is aggravated assault with a firearm against a federal law enforcement agency. That'll get you up to 20 years in prison, and that could be forthcoming.
2 questions. The first one is curiosity about how he knew where to be and how he got this close-ish.
Well, I got to tell you, Chris, it's not that uncommon for people to gawk at the former president while he's golfing. Paparazzi does it. The media have done it, where they go through the bush and usually they alert Secret Service and they're taking pictures. This time, instead of a camera, he had an AK-47 style rifle. The area here is very large and has these big bushes, and it's really difficult for Secret Service just to keep patrolling this huge area, especially have 2 very large, very busy roads on both sides. It's not like Mar-a-Lago, which is on Palm Beach Island, where you can cut off the roads where it's bordered on one side by water. This is in West Palm Beach, about 10 to 15 minutes away. So, if you really wanted to hang out 12 hours in a bush, you could conceivably do it. I just give credit to the Secret Service for stepping up and catching this guy before a tragedy ensued. I suspect they're going to have additional patrols every time the former president is golfing there from here on out, at least through the election.
Yeah, I think we're trusting ourselves way too much. I think we got to have a very different posture. Sadly, I think we've become like much of the rest of the world. where leaders are constantly in peril, whether the person is of sound mind or not. Second question, people who knew. This guy had a ton of charges. 20 years ago, he barricaded himself in a room with weapons. I believe his son was reportedly saying, yeah, I knew he hated Trump. Is there any responsibility, not liability, criminal responsibility for anyone around him who knew that this may have been bubbling in him?
No, generally you have to have someone who aided and abetted, actively did something to assist him, perhaps helped him flee, or perhaps told him where the former president would be that day. How did he know that Trump would be golfing at the golf club that Sunday? He doesn't always golf, although it happens a lot, and perhaps he was just hanging out on a Sunday thinking, what else is he going to do in Palm Beach on a lazy Sunday? Except do what he loves to do best, play golf, and he waited for the entourage to go through, all the cars that go with the former president into the golf facility. So maybe that's what happened, or maybe he was tipped off. We don't know. And law enforcement is looking for any accomplices. If there's someone out there who tipped him off, who assisted him in any way, yes, they will be charged. But if it's people who thought, yeah, he hated Trump, he said things like on the social media site about Iran, it's okay if you assassinate Trump. I mean, as bad as that sounds, that's not a crime just knowing he did that.
Dave Arenberg, appreciate you. Thank you very much. Let us know what else we need to know as we go forward. It's good to have you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Earlier tonight, the acting head of the Secret Service had a comment on this. And again, by all counts, including the former presidents, they did the job this time. Here's what he said.
The long and short of it is this. Coming out of Butler, I have ordered a paradigm shift. The Secret Service's protective methodologies work, and they are sound, and we saw that yesterday. But the way we are positioned right now in this dynamic threat environment, it has given me guidance to say, you know what, we need to look at what our protective methodology is.
Good, right? That's all you can do. So let's look at this tactically, okay? Counterterror expert Phil Mudd, former Secret Service agent Paul Eckloff, former FBI special agent and NewsNation law and justice contributor Jennifer Coffindaffer. First, the former president said to me on the phone, I think they did a great job. By most accounts, this would have been hard to do any better than they did. Does anybody have an open complaint about the Secret Service role in this?
No.
No?
Absolutely
all right, good. Not. Now we get to Paul, I'll start with you, Paul. What are you supposed to do? I mean, how can you keep somebody safe from somebody wanting to kill them in America today? I mean, are we just having an unreasonable expectation?
In a situation like this at this Trump International Golf Course, and I have protected President Trump on this specific site many times, it's very difficult in the middle of a city with high-speed avenues of approach, roads around it, and 400 acres. The way that the security plan for OTRs, or off-the-record movement, works is they create a moving bubble. There's a lead element, there's a trail element, and all of those special teams that are used by the president are in place for Trump today: counter-assault, counter-sniper, and counter-surveillance. In this case, the lead agent's job is to be a couple terrain features ahead and to flush out potential assassins. And he 100% did that. Notice this sniper's nest, engaged with his firearm, and disrupted an assassination attempt.
This guy is a little interesting, Phil. He was over in Ukraine. He was doing interviews. I don't know if he descended into madness or he's always been this way, but there's different aspects to him. What is your take? I want to play a little sound of him. He was in Ukraine, as we heard earlier, in 2022, trying to recruit Afghan soldiers to get them over there, and anything's better than getting hunted down by the Taliban, right? So anyway, here's what he had to say about his raison d'etre.
I think, everybody around the globe should be motivated to come here and support the Ukrainians. This is about good versus evil. If the governments will not send their official military, then we civilians have to pick up the torch and make this thing happen. It seems asinine that we have a leader in a country that does not understand the concept of being unselfish and being generous. We're going to have to elect new leaders the next go around. that have a backbone and that, have the fortitude to say, hey, we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior.
Does this guy size up as a special kind of animal that you've looked at in the past, like the poison patriot?
In some ways, Chris, I guess I put this in a few categories. When I look at extremists in the past, whether they're right wing or Islamic, left wing, whatever, you're talking about people who go down a path and persuade themselves that violence is acceptable. Now, typically, you have a leadership figure that takes them down that path. One of my questions about this case would be, was there somebody who led him down this path? Was he on, for example, a Facebook group that talked to him? There's a flip side of this, though, and I think we're going to hear this in the next couple of days. There would be too many questions about why someone didn't call, whether someone should have notified law enforcement. My answer would have been, unless we find something unique about the weapon, what is the call supposed to be? That somebody I know is a little crazy, that my neighbor's a little crazy? I mean, every time I go to the DMV, Chris, about 40% of the people in there look nuts to me. So I think when we go to a place in America where a lot of politicians obviously have access to the public, there's going to be a certain amount of the population that isn't mentally well. The question in this case is, how do you get a weapon to do something about it?
I agree with Paul's analysis. I agree with your analysis, but I still have a question. Jennifer, do you believe that it was just random that he knew the right golf course and when Trump would be there and he just hung out for 12 hours and it was just catch as catch can, as the Palm Beach County prosecutor says? Or do you think that it's worth probing a little bit deeper?
I think it's definitely worth probing, and that is exactly what the FBI will do. Listen, he had zip ties. He zipped himself in that location, I believe, well knowing Trump was there. How did he know that? I just don't believe this was random, and he said, I'm just going to hang out here for 12 hours.
Well, look, let him do the work. Let him search. Let him do what Phil always talks about, get in his phone, get the digital footprint, and see who else was involved. And I'm glad that the Secret Service is getting praise for doing it the right way. I don't know how we can have expectations of keeping people safe anymore. This country has got a lot of people with a lot of anger who are willing to act on it, and I don't think we can look at the Secret Service and say, figure it out. Anyway, Paul, Phil, thank you very much. Coffin Daffer, as always, appreciate the angle. We'll keep talking about it as we learn more. So, Trump, again, look, nobody criticizes the guy with a platform like mine more than I do, okay? And I think it is warranted. And I also believe that people who support him are often not like him. They're desperate for disruption. There are things that they care about more than his bad behavior. And he does not need to be saying, I hate Taylor Swift. A man who wants to lead us should be better. Now, he blames left-wing rhetoric. And then he says the same thing about him that he says they shouldn't be saying about him. Who is going to be better? There's opportunity here. We're desperate for better. Left and right. Let's see who can be reasonable. Next. Hey, I want Dusty to put up the tweet from the Libertarians of New Hampshire that they put on Twitter. Anyone who murders Kamala Harris would be an American hero. Now, I want you to see it. They took it down because they said, we don't want to break the terms of agreement of Twitter, although I don't know that Musk would care based on what he's been putting out. I want you to see it, and I want you to go after them with condemnation. Not violence, not hate. Don't be like them. Be better. Flood them and let people see what happens when you play to the ugliest of us. It is not a shame that even on a free speech website, libertarians can't speak freely. You can speak freely. And by the way, libertarian for people like you is just an excuse that you're really about nothing. You think you're better than everybody else, but you don't even know what libertarian is. And you people never do anything with what you say you believe. You can speak freely, but not free from consequence. And people should show you what they think of you, but they shouldn't be like you in doing so. And yes, I reached out to former President Trump today, not because I want to join his team, not for an interview, not as an anchor, not to scold, just to say, human to human, I am sorry for what he and his family have been dealing with. People tried to take him out twice in 2 months. And yes, he absolutely has responsibility and a role in the ugliness that is fomenting, that is toxifying our dialogue. Posting "I hate Taylor Swift" on Truth Social is beneath him and absolutely beneath the dignity of the office that he wants to reclaim. Now, blaming the Democrats is different, okay? Because they do set him up as a despot in waiting, as a threat to democracy. They definitely do. But again, God forbid he be better than what he is decrying, right? Calling her a communist. He used to be socialist. Now they had the one us. So now it's communist. And he says they're the threat to democracy. So you don't like that they call you a threat to democracy, and you think that's why people are coming after you, so you call them a threat to democracy. Who will be better? Former senior director in the Obama White House, Nayyera Haq, and former deputy assistant press secretary for President George Bush, W. Bush, Pete Seat, and conservative strategist Rena Shaw. It's good to have you all three. Pete, I would love to get the former president to come on. I reached out to Fred. I want to get him on to talk about how we should be. And he spoke very eloquently about this in a book forward I was reading recently. And I'd love to get him on. Now, let's talk about who's going to use the opportunity. Okay, Nayyera, I'll start with you. There's an opportunity in this, not just to say, we don't condone violence, and not for Harris to say basically nothing. Where is the initiative to use what is wrong to make an impassioned case for what is right in how we treat each other?
Well, you saw after the first assassination attempt that President Biden did pick up the phone. And that at that point, they were both still at odds over the nomination and going at it with each other. But he did rise above and had that courtesy of human decency that you're talking about to recognize one human in another. I think there's so many examples in this campaign of the opportunity that we have to humanize rather than dehumanize. And we're seeing an example right now with the idea of Haitian immigrants being demonized by, by the right wing right now. It's such an arbitrary meme that got picked up online that not only are Haitians being decried for who they are, but it's spreading to other people who look like Haitians. There's so many opportunities throughout this process and this election to not talk about they and them, but talk about actual human beings and what these leaders can do for them.
And you should own that on your watch, the system is so screwed up that you put a third of a population in 2.5 years into a society that's not ready for it. And that is something that has to change and should have changed on their watch. Why not own it?
Well, in terms of owning what it means to have a migrant influx and flows of refugees coming in, this certainly isn't new to the Biden administration or Trump. This goes back even further than Obama. Some of the owning really comes from the fact that U.S. policies in Central America have helped cause the crisis that we're facing today, right? This idea of root causes. The people are coming here for a reason. Now, some of that reason also is how, when people come to the border, how they're treated. Are there enough judges to actually quickly solve these processes and say, nope, you're in, nope, you're out? The answer is no. That's something John McCain worked on as a senator. But let's get this immigration broken system, actually fix the parts that we know are broken. Certainly need bipartisanship for that. There was an effort at bipartisanship earlier this year in Congress. That got trumped literally for partisan purposes. So immigration and how you deal with people who are desperate and they're finding their way to our country, it is absolutely the crisis of a generation, but it shouldn't be a partisan issue. Go back to Reagan. His last speech in the White House was talking about how immigrants are part of the future, that migrants can help the economy. You got to manage it in the right way.
Well, that's the problem. I agree with all of that, except the managing part, because you don't put a third of a population into a society that can't handle it and then say they're coming for a reason. You give them temporary protected status. You got to do better than this. And that's what we'll see, is how can Harris negotiate that. Rena, I got beef with everybody today. I agree that Vance should not be advancing this nonsense about people eating dogs and cats. But I do not agree that he admitted creating the story. What he said was He is creating an opportunity to direct attention to what is happening in Springfield, Ohio. That's different than saying, I admit I made up the dogs and cats thing. Why is it being played the other way?
Because, Chris, he gave himself away. The very words he used was, if I have to create stories. When you use a phrase like that, you're telling on yourself. I mean, I've been a political communicator now for almost 2 decades, and I can tell you, nobody could have prepped him for that. There's just no way. He told the truth. He understands how the media works. This was very different than pitching a story. This is very different than saying, here's 3 constituent letters I got of this heinous thing happening in Ohio. This is, again, taking a tiny, maybe 1 or 2 incidents that he read about on Facebook, which turned out to not even be true, it seems. And that's all confusing, but let's put that on the side. He took a Facebook post and made it seem like it was a big problem. This is a sitting U.S. senator. This is somebody that could take the presidency if Donald Trump, who is on the edge of 80, wins and keels over. And this is a problem, Chris. He's lying. No matter which way you turn it. And I know people are sympathetic to him because they think the media is not giving him a fair shake. He gave himself away. You don't use that phrase, create stories, when you're a responsible, almost 40-year-old, Senator Vance. You are a liar.
Pete C.
Yes.
Trump absolutely turbocharges the flames. I'm not going to say he lit the fire. We've been ugly with each other for a long time, long before Trump. But is there any chance that he sees the opportunity to take what is happening to him, that everybody with a pulse should think is wrong, and say, I'm going to do better? He seemed to do the opposite today. He's doubling down on nasty. Is there any chance he does what you guys used to be all about as the character counts party?
Unfortunately, I think the answer to that, Chris, is no. We thought after that first assassination attempt that he was a changed man. And we saw that in the first couple of nights of the Republican National Convention. He seemed subdued. He did not seem like himself as he sat there watching the proceedings. He had a granddaughter sitting on his lap. I don't think I had ever seen that kind of interaction with his family the way we saw it at the RNC. And I thought maybe he had changed, but he's 78 years old. He's set in his ways. And as you touched on earlier tonight, his ways and his rhetoric and the way he campaigns was successful in 2016. He won the presidency. In his mind, he won again in 2020. So why change his style of campaigning and his rhetoric? There's no incentive in his mind. I wish he would rise above it, because someone needs to, and not just leadership, but each and every one of us. I wrote a piece in USA Today in the days after that first assassination attempt saying, this isn't that we have to turn down the temperature of politics. It's that we have to turn down the temperature of our day-to-day lives. This is how we treat one another all day, every day, and it has to stop.
Pete C., appreciate it. Rena Shaw, well argued. Nayyera Huck, I appreciate the conversation. How bad did I mangle your name, by the way? People mangle my name all the time. You'd think I'd be better.
Just right, Chris. You got it just right.
I did? All right. I appreciate you. Thank you for making the case. Come back again, each and all. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Up next, I have to make a decision. How bad do I want my ratings to be? Because I know the more I talk to you about what we need to be and how we need to be, the less I'm playing into the game and the less you guys will watch. But a lot of that, I believe, is conditioning. And I think we can be reminded about how we get better. And I think that's what's going on with this NYPD scandal. I've never seen corruption top down like this. 2 more high-ranking city officials under Mayor Eric Adams have stepped down, including his counsel, who says she stepped down because he wouldn't listen to her about who to get rid of. No one knows better what this investigation means and what's going on with attacking our presidents and former presidents than former NYPD Commissioner Ray Kelly. Did Secret Service, made us safe, knows the Adams administration. Perfect guest. Again, we've never seen anything like this, what's happening in New York right now. Mayor Eric Adams announced the resignation of his commissioner, the NYPD commissioner, Edward Caban. The FBI raided the commissioner's home. We've never heard of anything like that. Just 2 days later, the mayor's top attorney, Lisa Zornberg, abruptly announced her resignation. She reportedly told the mayor she would quit if he didn't fire his other aides who were caught up in the federal corruption investigations. Adams refused, so she left. Today, we found out another top cop who had his phone seized by the FBI is leaving the force. So, smoke versus fire, what this means for Adams, what this means for the NYPD, and interesting perspective from someone who worked the Secret Service about what the reality is of keeping our presidents and the people who want to be presidents safe. The NYPD's longest serving commissioner ever, friend of mine, friend of show, Ray Kelly. Good to see you, Commissioner.
Good to be with you, Chris. Nice to have me.
Damn, you outdressed me again. I knew it was going to happen. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen anything like Adams since Serpico? And is there warranted scrutiny that this is unprecedented in what the FBI seems to be trying?
I think it's definitely unprecedented. We don't know the whole story by any means. I think we know what the allegations are as far as the police commissioner and the police commissioner's brother, who's his identical twin, which, by the way, plays into this. In the Bloomberg, in the Giuliani, in the de Blasio administration, there was a program called March. It's a multi-agency group that would respond to clubs, illegal clubs, bars, noise complaints, that sort of thing. And it was very effective. Apparently, people spoke to somebody in the Adams administration, perhaps Eric himself, that this was really hurting business. So there was a decision to eliminate the March program and to push it down to local precincts where it could be mediated. That's the word that was used. And now we have one of the allegations that's out in public is that the police commissioner's brother came to a bar owner, a club owner, and said that he would take care of the problems if, in fact, we get paid $2,500, which, of course, is no pocket change, but it's an indication of a much bigger plan. So that's what we know, at least as far as the allegations are concerned. There are several lower-ranking people, lieutenants, and then some chiefs whose phones have been taken, and it's still a little bit murky as to what this all means. But in terms of the administration itself, these are very high-ranking people who had their phones taken, including the mayor himself. I couldn't believe they did this. They took his phone out in public. They stopped him with his security detail, took his phone from him. So there's a lot of phones over there in the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah, they got a lot of phones. What I don't get is, look, it's just, even an indictment is just probable cause. It's the lowest threshold we have. But would the FBI go after all of these head honchos just on helping nightclub owners for $2,500 or however much money? I know there's a parallel investigation into contracts for Turkish businessmen, but if you're going to go after the mayor in public, shouldn't you have like the biggest stick possible?
You would think so. And I understand exactly what you're saying. You know, is this small change, or does this lead to a much bigger cabal network? That's you know, there's a lot of no bid contracts that are out there now, particularly with the migrants in New York City. So there's at least a lot of potential for big money deals going forward, perhaps illegally. So again, it's all still very much inchoate, as they say. We don't fully know what this is all about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, as we learn more and as we learn more about what's going on, I'm gonna leverage you on live TV to come back to talk to me about the Secret Service situation and our presidents. I want to have a longer conversation with more time with you about where we are, but I'm going to run out of show. So I'm going to ask you to come back, and I promise I'll take you to dinner if you come back. I'd love to see you anyway, Ray. It's great to see you. Okay, Commissioner Ray Kelly, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for your perspective. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right. Speak again soon. Listen, I appreciate you. I'm sorry to